All right, guys, this is my top 10 tips for DoorDash and how much I made in my first 256 deliveries.
Oh, the day I break these chains, I'm bound for the life of the simple things.
First topic that we need to lock down and discuss right now is rejecting or accepting orders. Now, all of your orders come in with some kind of guarantee from DoorDash. That's how the system works. And number one thing, if you want to be profitable doing DoorDash, you absolutely should almost never accept an order that isn't at least $1 per mile. And if you see this guy right here, this is one of these orders that had come in and they wanted me to run 10 miles for less than $7. Total reject. Don't do that. You're guaranteed to make poor money that way. If you don't accept anything that isn't at least $1 a mile, okay, and you get a couple of deliveries an hour, all right, if you know you're going to, after your expenses, make at least 10 to 13 bucks an hour, okay, after expense. We're talking about after the maintenance on your car, the fuel that it costs to run your car, all of those sort of things, okay? And I use the 58 cents a mile number from the IRS for that. There is very, very rarely, but there are some occasions where I do break that rule. And that is only broken if the order that came through is a legit restaurant with a good size orders and stuff. And so when it's that kind of deal there, I'll go ahead and I might accept something if it's a major restaurant where I know the plate average is, 15 to 20 bucks minimum, and I got 4 or 5 items on there. I know that's going to be a high dollar order, and so I know there's likely, because most people tip based upon the dollar amount. So I know I'm looking at probably at least a $10 tip on that order. And so if it's close to that $1 a mile, I'm gonna go ahead and take that, right? But any other time, at least $1 a mile, and I really, really try to shoot for, if it's a really busy day, $1.20 a mile. Then I know I'm gonna be in that $15, $16 to $18 range. If it's $1.20, it's at least gonna be the $12 to $13 range after actually paying for all my expenses. Next thing, I do not, unless it's a major restaurant with multiple items that lets me know that I'm gonna have a higher dollar amount order, I do not accept anything that is under $5. And DoorDash is actually shooting out these guarantees less than $5 now. I saw one as little as $4.11 where the tip was $3. DoorDash only paid me $1.11 for that delivery. Absolutely nuts. Don't accept them if they're not at least $5, unless of course it's a very short order and it's that's going to be a higher dollar amount. Scheduling portion of the tips that I'm going to give you guys, since I've been in markets where it's been busy as heck and you can always get on. I've been in markets that it's almost always gray. In fact, Houston was almost always gray. Dallas is starting to become more frequently gray, and Odessa and Midland, that market was, you could always get on pretty much, especially during peak hours, and I learned quite a bit from that in how to kind of work the schedule. But let's go ahead and talk about the promotions. As you see right here, a lot of times you'll see these kind of promotions at different time periods that they post up. You'll also see those where it gets really, really busy. If it's $1 or $2 extra per delivery, don't not reject, because to get these promotions, they want you to take at least 80% of the orders and everything, and you can end up taking a bunch of bad orders or getting routed out of the area or stuff like that, and that ends up being really bad for you. So don't really pay attention to the promotion. Stick to that $1 a mile and those multiple items sort of thing, unless it starts getting into that $3 range that you'll see sometimes. I go ahead and I stick to accepting everything in that, because that extra usually makes up on the mileage for me, is what I've learned going along. Now these promotions like you're seeing here, you'll see that most of these are 7:30 to 10:30, and these are kind of hard to get on. But if you're going to be trying to schedule on them, if you're in a market that's mostly gray most of the time, and these promotions are usually tied up and stuff, which is the case here in Dallas right now, those you can still get on those, but you got to be really on top of your app. You got to like pretty much live on top of your app. Schedule opportunities will be out at midnight every day. Now, after you get your 100 orders in, and if you have a high enough acceptance rate, I've noticed, and especially talking to other people, that you'll get some opportunities to have that schedule a little earlier. And I've noticed that those schedule opportunities will pop up around 3 p.m. sometimes. So that's a big tip to try to get those. Next, let's say that you can't ever get them on it. Your schedule's so hard, there's so many people, and it's so saturated in your market, and you can't get into the good times to dash, right, on the schedule. You can still land those. And how you do it is you watch your app at a certain time. Now, if you look at these, all of these here are about 7:30 to 10:30, right? Well, a lot of people will sleep in or something, right? Or they'll drop them at the last second because they can't make it or get on or what have you, right? And so you get a forced drop by DoorDash at 30 minutes, okay, where you didn't log on in the first 30 minutes of your shift. So these 7:30 to 10:30 shifts like this, a lot of times you'll see them pop up all of a sudden at around 8 o'clock or 8:03 or something like that. So if you watch on it at 8 a.m., you can end up getting on those. So let's get to talking about the merchants, all right? So if you're like me and you wander to different markets and you're trying to use it to be DoorDash to be able to travel, it's a little bit harder to be really on top of the merchants and everything, and do the best that you can there. But there are some things that you absolutely can watch for. So for instance, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, these guys, they already have their preferred app for deliveries and everything. And so whenever you get one of those kind of orders from those outfits, you know that you're gonna have to place the order and then wait for the food. So you need to pay close attention on which places usually take longer to do that are a part of those, and avoid those, okay? If you do that, you're gonna be way better off. I would say, unless your orders are more like $1.50 a mile for those, because you need to get paid that extra for sitting in there and waiting for the food and placing the order. Also on these merchants, you know, there's some that are always consistently bad, like Red Lobster and Cotton Patch. I know for a fact these guys, they're not even starting your order until you show up. They go in there and they do your order on a rush once you're there, but they haven't started cooking it before you get there, which that sucks. So, and then if you're lucky enough to be consistently in one market all the time, you're gonna know exactly who's always slow at getting the order out to you, or those folks that those restaurants that basically consistently make mistakes, because those restaurants are going to hit you. It's going to hurt your ratings. It's going to make it harder for you to get on schedule. A lot of people that do DoorDash, they don't realize there's what's called catering orders, and the catering orders are so cake. So it's pretty much like making a regular delivery almost, but only there's more food to it, and you got to go somewhere and set it up. But still, it's pretty cake. And I got one not too long ago when I was in Odessa, $35. It took me 20 minutes to set it up. Now you can't get those unless you have at least I was told in Odessa and Midland, you can't get those unless you have at least a 4.8 customer rating, and you have about 85% or so on completion percentage. So like 85% of all of your orders you complete that you ever accept. And there are reasons to reject orders, like if you walk in, they haven't even started it, it's a busy time period and the pay wasn't that good on it, reassign, head out. Those kind of things actually are connected heavily to cash tips. Like a lot of people act like you don't get any cash tips. I get a decent amount of cash tips, and so I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. Now, if you show up to a restaurant, it's a good size order, so you don't want to, and they don't have it done or they haven't even started, but it's a $70, $100 order, right? Well, you don't want to reject that because the tip usually is pretty good on those, right? So when the order hasn't even been started and I show up to the restaurant, I always call the customer. I let them know, I just got here. They told me that they hadn't even started your order yet, so I'm gonna be here waiting on your food. I'm gonna let you know as soon as I have your food, I'll give you an ETA on when I'll have it to you. And I get so many thank yous for that, and many times I've gotten handed cash tips. The order's already been started, but I know I'm gonna wait. I send a text message saying I'm here at the restaurant, I'm waiting on your food, and I'll let you know as soon as I have it and I'm on my way. Those are things that really help with the customers. Another thing is, whenever you're at places like Chick-fil-A gives these little moist towelettes that you can get, and the mints and the places like that. I always get extra of those. I always take extra napkins, and then I give them their food and everything, and then I go, and then here, I pick these up for you, and I give those kind of things like that. That's like something that really helps along those, helps me get those higher ratings and everything like that. When you're scheduled on a shift, if you can get on the app about 15 minutes early. If you happen to have one of those areas where the whole area is within your thing and you're not driving from your house into an area, right? You can get on the app still at your house and then route over to whatever your hotspot is. The hotspot thing is a great one to discuss here, because when I say your hotspot, I mean that specifically. Ignore DoorDash hotspots unless you just happen to be like me and you don't know anything about the restaurants yet and you just popped into a market, right? You're gonna need to use those hotspots until you know where the restaurants really are. Make up your own hotspot. There's certain restaurants that are absolutely partners with DoorDash, like Buffalo Wild Wings, Wingstop, Applebee's, Chili's, Chick-fil-A. Some of these are all like Chipotle. They all have like an actual relationship with DoorDash, and so those are restaurants that are going to have a lot of orders, and so you find an area that's where you go route back to when you're done making a delivery, and don't just go over to wherever the hotspot says on the app. I know a lot of you are really curious as what I've made in my first 256 deliveries now that I've completed, and I've done those in 3 different markets, and I think it's like 8 different cities now, and I ended up making $2,436 on those 256 deliveries, and I probably averaged almost 2 an hour. So I'm probably, after my expenses, after 256 deliveries, I'm about at that $15 an hour range. So I just found ways to get the money up more. Now, obviously you have those slow days, like just yesterday on Monday, I ended up being out on the road for, I think it was like 7 or 7.5 hours, and I only made $102. And so after my expenses, it's probably about 10, 11 bucks an hour. But Monday was dead. It was even very hard to even get to Dash yesterday. With those tips alone, you should be at least able to pull down that 15 to 16 bucks an hour after your expenses. And some of you guys that have the Red All the Time markets, there's no reason why you shouldn't make 20 plus an hour in those markets. Get out there, connect with people, live your big story, and make sure you do something every single day to reduce world suck. Peace, guys.